Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this message. I'm Pastor Sean. Over the last 15 years, I've been working with both city and suburban churches throughout Saskatchewan and Ontario in Canada to see people meet Jesus and to see local ministries established or revitalized. Currently, I'm in the middle of something that's very close to my heart, that's a bit new. Here in Toronto, and I'm standing here in Liberty Grace Church in Liberty Village in Toronto. But here in Toronto, I'm in the final stages of working out the details on partnering with FEB Central, which is a regional Baptist denomination, and Acts 29, which is a global church planting network, to plant a new church in the Parkdale neighborhood of Toronto. Not only is Toronto a place that really needs more Jesus-loving, Bible-preaching, city-loving churches, but Toronto is a big mission field. It is the third largest city in the North American countries of the United States and Canada, and after New York City and Los Angeles, it is the third largest. But for me, the mission to see something happen here in Toronto is even more personal. See, I grew up here, and not in a Christian home. No, I grew up on a series of couches in rundown apartments all around Toronto's West End, but especially in Parkdale, where I was raised by strippers and bikers. But then I met Jesus, and he transformed me from the inside out, and he invited me into a new way to live, and he gave me a whole new way to see myself and everything else around me. And even though I grew up suspicious of people offering to help, over time, Jesus' offer of help has proven trustworthy. And that brings me to why I'm sharing this message. See, I want you to have a life-transforming, challenging, meaningful encounter with Jesus and his message about being invited into his kingdom, which is his community, his way of life, his eternal purpose, his explanation about what gives us identity and life and meaning. Are you convinced that Jesus has nothing to say that you need to hear? Well, I bet you that he does. See, Jesus has transformed my life so much, from being raised by strippers and bikers to becoming a Christian pastor, and I don't think I'm an exception. I think that everyone can experience the same transforming power that I have experienced, and that's why I want to see you and everyone changed by a life-altering encounter with Jesus and his message. Or maybe you think, hey, I'm good. I've already taken Jesus up on this, and so this message is for other people. Well, not so fast, because no matter how long we've been aiming higher for the heavenly message of what Jesus has revealed to us, life struggles still have a way of pulling us back down to earth, often without us even realizing it. We all need to hear over and over again the good news that Jesus is inviting us into his kingdom, that we belong, and that the world has no claim on us. And one way we can learn about the good news of Jesus is through a tool that I've developed called the Redemption Catechism, and I've posted a link to that below here in the YouTube channel. It's a way of learning about Christianity through a series of questions and answers and Bible readings. And one thing that sets this tool apart from others is that this gives you an overview of what Christians believe by taking you on a journey through the entire narrative of the Bible. So think of it as an overview of the Bible, a guided tour with stops along the way. Now, I've already covered a lot of these questions and answers in this tool elsewhere in my preaching ministry at another church, and I'll link to those messages below. But for today, we're going to cover the part that talks about what I just mentioned, which is Jesus' call to enter into and belong to his kingdom. The question that we're faced with is this question, number 23 from the Redemption Catechism. It asks, will God gather us as his people together and bring us into his kingdom? So will God gather us as his people together, and will he bring us into his kingdom? The answer to those questions comes from two scripture readings, one from the Old Testament and one from the New. The Old Testament reading is Ezra chapter 1, verses 1 to 5. It says this: In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, so that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and also put it in writing. Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever is among you of all his people, may his God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and rebuild the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem. And let each survivor in his place, with silver and gold, with goods and with beasts, besides freewill offerings for the house of God that is in Jerusalem. Then rose up the heads of the fathers' houses of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, everyone whose spirit God had stirred up to go and rebuild the house of the Lord that is in Jerusalem. And our New Testament reading comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verses 18 to 20. It says this. This is Jesus speaking. He says, I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. Yet a little while, and the world will see me no more. But you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. In that day, you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. And so the question again is, will God gather us as his people together and bring us into his kingdom? The answer from these verses that we just read is this: yes. God desires that we will be with him in his kingdom. As God gathered Israel after their time of exile, God will also gather his church. He will move in us and by his Spirit gather us together. He will not leave us as orphans, but he will come and make his home with us. He will not leave us or forsake us, for we belong to him, and no one is able to snatch us out of his hand. And so what do we get out of all of this? Number one, there is a great invitation. The first thing that you and I need to know is this: we have been invited. We have been invited to be part of what God is doing and to participate in the kingdom that he is bringing. And we are all invited. It is like, in a sense, and not to get political here, but it is helpful to imagine God's kingdom as having open borders. Everyone who wants to come has an open invitation to come and to become full citizens. God's kingdom includes every kind of people from everywhere, every race, every class, every language, men and women, rich and poor, educated and uneducated, young and old, every kind of people from everywhere. In the Old Testament, which is the part of the Bible that leads up to Jesus, the story of the nation of Israel stands in for our story, yours and mine. In fact, in the later part of the Bible, in the book of Romans chapter 11, it says that when we start following Jesus, it's like we get grafted in to Israel's story. There's some continuity there between us and them. And so when the Old Testament book of Ezra chapter 1 says that historically in 538 BC, after the nation of Israel had been broken up and the people were separated and they were led away into exile, that God actually moved in the hearts of human beings. And he invited people who had walked away from him to return out of all the nations of the earth to rebuild the kingdom that God had set aside for them. That message is not just a history lesson. It is a today lesson. And it is there for you and for me too. Like the question and answer that we just read says, God desires that we will be with him in his kingdom. And what is this kingdom that we have been invited into? It's what we were built for. It's where life keeps on going instead of just getting shut down. It's everything in heaven and on earth being united into perfect harmony. That is going to happen, and it's something that we get to experience the beginnings of even now. God's kingdom is the absence of war, and the absence of meaninglessness, and the absence of shame, and it is the presence of the joy that we long for. And it is God's gift of acceptance and purpose and discovery and freedom and peace. And most of all, the kingdom is where you and I will get to be in the very real, personal presence of our Creator. Imagine that. You and I will get to see the face of God. And that is the kingdom that we are getting invited into. But before you say that this is what you want, there is a second thing that you need to know, which is this. There's a challenge that comes with this invitation. Now, it's not really a catch. While there is a cost to enter in, it's not a cost that you paid, it's a cost that God paid. And we'll cover that next week through an amazing prophecy about Jesus that's contained in the biblical book of Zechariah. It's amazing that we have copies of the prophecies in that book that are older than the time of Jesus. But no, the challenge that you and I need to deal with is this. If we want to enter into God's kingdom, then we actually need to want to be a part of it. Look back at Ezra chapter 1 here. The people in the book of Ezra who went back to Jerusalem to be part of what God was inviting them into, they had to leave behind their lives in the other kingdoms that they had been living in. They weren't coming back to Jerusalem to rebuild the places that they were coming from. No, they weren't building Egypt or Babylon or Persia there. No, they were rebuilding God's house that is in Jerusalem. The challenge for you and me is we often want to try to enter into God's kingdom while carving out a little space for some other kingdom inside of that. And that just doesn't work. Saying yes to God's invitation for all people to enter in at the same time means saying no to the ways of the kingdoms that we were once part of. It means being willing to say that we're not going to be part of the kingdom of greed, where people get turned into commodities and where people step on each other to get ahead. It means we're not going to be part of the kingdom of pleasure where chasing the next biggest thrill splits up families and cuts us off from our own dreams and produces memories of shame and regret. It means we're not going to be part of the kingdom of self-righteousness where people invent increasingly ridiculous rules for themselves and others to follow in order to judge one another and one-up each other until everyone feels under pressure to do things they don't need to do, to fit into a culture they're uncomfortable with, to win the approval of people that they don't even like. The challenge for us is this: to leave these kingdoms and all others like them behind, not to bring them into God's kingdom with us. That's not going to happen. It can't happen. The challenge is, if we want to enter in, the invitation is open, the borders are open, anyone can come, but we have to leave our other kingdoms behind. And that brings us to the third and final thing that you need to know, which is that you and I have been given an opportunity right now to enter in. Like the people of Israel that we read about in Ezra chapter 1, God's Spirit still works in us today to move us and to make us aware of things that we might not have realized on our own. And whether you're a Christian or a non-Christian, I think it's possible right now that God might be making you feel uncomfortable with the promises of other kingdoms that you've been buying into lately. Maybe even without realizing it. I think that God's Spirit might be working right now on your heart, causing you to feel, whether for the first time or maybe to feel all over again, a real desire to know God and to be known by Him, and to be accepted in, and to welcome His spiritual guidance over your life, and to know the peace that comes with accepting that you are His eternally. And if that is going on right now in you, please do not ignore that impulse to return to Him. See, God is gathering His people. He's gathering His church together out of all the corners of the world. He's doing that right now. And if you're watching this message, I believe you might be part of that. God is moving in us by His Spirit. He is making His home within us. He is causing His Spirit to come into our hearts. And if you feel like there is a spiritual awareness there that's happening in you right now, don't ignore it. And because it is God's kingdom that you're being invited into, let me tell you what you can do about it. You don't need to sign a card. You don't need to send someone a donation. You don't need to ask a priest for his blessing. You don't need to make a journey to some holy site. You can reach out directly to God by praying to Him. And you can say, God, I want to be welcomed into your kingdom. I want to be known by you. I want to receive wisdom and guidance and purpose and joy. I don't want to chase what everyone else is chasing. I don't want to center my life around anything else. I just want to chase you, God, and center my life around you and to know you because of the amazing kindness that you have given me through Jesus. If you can say that and keep saying that every day, then you're not going to get checked at the border of God's kingdom. You're not going to get turned away. You're not going to be sent somewhere for processing until you're ready to enter in. You're in. And your entry or return into God's kingdom is a life-giving story that starts now and lasts forever. Isn't that amazing? And so let this message out of Ezra chapter 1, let it encourage you. God brings His people together. He invites us to return to Him. He wants to be known by us. And He wants us to know Him. He has offered us all of this because God is a good God. He is generous and He is kind. And He is calling out to each one of us. So accept the invitation. Take on the challenge. And enter it. Because the invitation, the opportunity is open right now. God might be working on your spirit right now saying, this is the time. This is it. Whether you've been following Jesus for many years or you're not following Him at all, there's a moment right now where you can stop and say, God, I just want to focus on you. I don't want to chase anything else. I don't want to belong to any other kingdom. I want to accept your invitation to enter into your kingdom. I want to accept that invitation every day. I want to be part of what you're doing. And His arms are wide open. And He says, come on in.